All right. Hey, let's rock and roll. I'm so excited to hang out with my boy Brian Zimmerman. This is what I have to do to be able to get some time with my good friend Brian, is either do live shots in the morning, which I can't do anymore, but now I just wanted to have him on my podcast, so I have him all to myself. But let me introduce Brian Zimmerman. He is the Cleveland Metroparks CEO since 2010. Is that crazy for you to hear?
Yeah, 14 years.
14 years.
Yes.
And you've been able to accomplish a lot in that time. And during that time have not only transformed just the parks, but also Cleveland, Northeast Ohio, which has been amazing. But yeah, the Cleveland Metroparks, you have a lot to manage here. They make up 18 reservations spanning more than 24,000 acres, more than 300 miles of trails, 8 golf courses, 8 lakefront parks, and a nationally acclaimed zoo and a partridge in a pear tree.
You know, so we've been so busy, we've added a 9th golf course now.
Oh my gosh.
We're over 25,000 acres. And so, you know, the dynamic nature
This is what I get for reading your Wikipedia. You know?
Well, what happens is that we don't sit still.
Yeah.
And I think the beauty of what this park system has been able to do, and with the support of the community, and it's not lost on the fact that our last levy passed at 78%. Having said that, the new strategic plan and the opportunities, Ironwood came online just within the last few months. So apparently Wikipedia hasn't caught up to us yet.
We'll update it.
We'll update it.
That's the beauty about Wikipedia.
Yep, it can be done. And then, the 25,000 acres, we were able to pick up Hawthorne Valley Golf Course, and then the historic Parmadale site in Parma, 7th largest city in the state of Ohio, recapturing that land for green space. And so that was the impetus that took us over 25,000. And now we continue to grow. We've got a few more opportunities to look at the growth. But, reflecting on those 14 years, it's hard to believe. I don't know that I've sat still for the 14 years, and our team hasn't sat still, which really makes it fun, to be quite honest.
You don't seem like a guy who likes to sit still.
I have a very hard time.
Yeah.
And our team knows it. And I think that's the essence of this work at home and these different models. You can't be an elephant keeper from home. You can't take care of animals from home. You can't maintain a golf course. So our team is there, and we're better together when we're, talking in the hallways and the conversations. And it's been a lot of fun.
Sure. And, you're talking about expansion. I actually was going to bring this up into the conversation, but let's just talk about it right now because we're literally talking about it. So, that doesn't seem like, from what I know about Metroparks, it seems like a lot of people, in other communities, municipalities, whatever it may be, they kind of have their parks, they sit on it, and they don't necessarily grow. That is not part of your DNA. It seems like your DNA is always expanding, always growing. Is that something that has been conscious of your strategy and what you guys have wanted to do, and how has that led to your success?
I'll actually take a step back 107 years ago.
Yeah.
William Stinchcomb, the founder, really envisioned a interconnected emerald necklace. Mm-hmm. And so when you look at only 5 other heads of the agency in 107 years, the win has been each head of the agent, each executive has really followed the plan. And so we've been continually executing on what's the beloved emerald necklace, Hinckley Lake Dam being the pendant, or Hinckley Reservation. So it's been amplified, I think, only to Stinchcomb. This administration has acquired more land per year than any other director besides Stinchcomb himself. And he, amassed like 9,000 acres in his first 10 years. So no one will ever catch that.
Well, it was 107 years ago. There was a little bit more land to take.
Yes. And, it was interesting to see his process and it unfold with Mayor Tom Johnson, and then the Park Commission and what they did to travel to different areas. And the Olmsteads came in, which are renowned. And, one of the things that a guiding principle has been this 888. So whether you're 8 years old or 80 years old, you should have an 8-minute walk or ride to the park. And so in the back of my mind, I'm constantly thinking about how do we connect. And we can go through partnerships that we can talk about, East 90s 55th and Warner Hill Connector. We can talk about those things, kind of in this podcast, but it's really been present and mindful, at least in the last 14 years.
Yeah. And then also too, you guys are, I think what's top of mind for so many people right now is what's taking place in the flats. 5 years ago, it was not a wasteland. That's not a great way to be able to put it, but around the banks, there wasn't a whole lot. I think that's the number one criticism that I've heard from Clevelanders since I've moved here, is that we don't utilize the waterfront. We don't utilize the waterfront. It seems like now we have the momentum and the property to be able to do that, and you guys are doing just that. Irishtown Bend, you guys are continuing to buy up other places around the flats. What is that strategy going forward, and how is that going to transform the flats?
I think the step back through different lenses is it's progress through partnerships. And so when you look at the Port of Cleveland taking the heavy lift of basically redefining the bank of the Cuyahoga River, the Irishtown Bend area, they're the lead on that. Then you talk about West Creek, who preserved and conserved the land in current state. Then you talk about Land Studio, who basically had the foresight to think about this trail and this trail easement where 7 railroads once laid along the banks of the Cuyahoga River, then Ohio City Incorporated, City of Cleveland, Cleveland Metroparks, foundations. I mean, it's really progress through partnerships. So that's really unique to see that kind of come to fruition finally. Yeah. But then you take a step back, Merwin's has got its 10th year anniversary, which is hard to believe that, on the shores of that was the old Commodore Club. That's moved forward. Then you've got the Foundry and Cleveland Rowing Foundation, and now the acquisition of the cereal foods facility where it's, historic grain silos. Our goal is to build a trail all the way to the Flats East Bank, all the way around. And now you see Dan Gilbert, Rocket Mortgage, Bedrock, all of that wonderful connections. And you're thinking, holy cow, we've grown up as a city. Yeah. And we've embraced this kind of uniqueness that we hadn't seen before. Chicago, Baltimore, Milwaukee. There's so many great examples. We just kind of evolved because business was there.
Yeah. And was there, you're talking about working with all of these different people. I can only imagine just the web that you have to go through to make some of this happen. How do you manage that?
It's a team effort. We have a very high-powered legal team inside. And what I mean by that is they are there for the benefit.
You're out there suing people left and right.
That doesn't normally happen, believe it or not. Very, very seldom does that actually become the lever at the end. Cleveland Metroparks being held in the regard that is most want to work with us. And, we've had our challenges, periodically. We've been sued. But we try very hard to work with folks and really understand where this long-term goal is.
Sure.
And so when you look at the 107th year and these unique connections along the way, people are going to be really excited about what the Cuyahoga River will mean here in the next 10 years.
Yeah, it's going to be unrecognizable here in the next 10 years, which is going to be really exciting and what you guys have done. Let's get a little bit to you, and we'll kind of come back forward to Cleveland Metroparks. But, did you always grow up wanting to be like a Leslie Knope, because you did the recreation thing also as you're the chief operating officer with Milwaukee County for a number of years, and then this job with the CEO of Cleveland Metroparks. Is this something that you always wanted to do, or when did this start?
I'm only laughing because in our office, we have a few people that are definitely characters from the show. I won't tell you who they are, but when the moments happen, you're just like, oh, that was a Leslie Knope moment.
Absolutely.
And you can kind of see the characters and some of the things that come out. And, it's a unique dynamic. I got a call this morning for a group wanting to put a music hall in the Park District. And I got somebody that wanted us to cut down a whole bunch of trees because they wanted a better view. And so we deal with a lot of very unique things. But, I think growing up, I grew up on a farm, south of Madison, Wisconsin, and really started to understand what it was like to maybe get a paycheck once a year.
Sure.
And I'm like, I'm not so sure this is for me. And
you wanted the steady paycheck.
Paycheck. Wasn't afraid of hard work, but really got the opportunity through my grandfather, who was a dairy farmer, to go play Lake Ripley Country Club. And he'd go out at 5 o'clock in the morning because he was just a retired dairy farmer. And it was one of the most peaceful things that you could ever imagine, being on a golf course as the sun is coming up. Little did I know that my godfather at the time was the superintendent of Tacoma Country Club, where I worked for 8 years going through college. And so it was one of those kind of hand in glove. So I always thought I would be outdoors. And then, the evolution and progress of not saying no to an opportunity. And got a chance to go to Michigan to rebuild a golf course there. And I always said to my wife, I said, hey, if we get a chance, if a good job comes back in Milwaukee, we'll go back for a sausage and beer and, Summerfest and all the things, old fashions that we talked about, wonderful Wisconsin traditions. But an opportunity came up to work for the park system there, which was really unique. It was the oversight of the 16 municipal golf courses. And they were losing almost $5 million a year. So it wasn't like I was walking into, hey, this thing is a well-oiled machine. They're like, hey, we need somebody to fix this.
Yeah, it wasn't like you were able to golf every day.
In fact, it's interesting. My golf game then, I could only tell you I probably played in the 8 years I was there maybe a half a dozen times.
Oh my gosh.
We started, there were some nights we would work through the night because the irrigation systems weren't working or this wasn't working or something happened and we got calls out. But the point is that I didn't say no to an opportunity and to redefine those golf courses and have them basically was proof if you put money in, you'll get more money out.
Sure.
And lo and behold, the process that was put in place, and I've been here 14 years, so probably 16, 17 years ago, is still in place. They're still investing. And they are continuing to be a sense of pride for the Milwaukee County Park System. And then I got promoted to run operations, 156 parks, and that complex dynamic was very unique because we had parking structures and we had botanical gardens and Mitchell Park domes, and then you threw the golf courses and then all the other things. It really prepared me to be successful here.
Sure. A funny side note, you brought up Lake Ripley. My grandparents met at Lake Ripley.
No way.
How about that? Isn't that crazy?
See, those are the heartwarming things. It's all things are connected some way, but that's where I got my start, kind of in the outdoor realm. Now, I should say my parents took us to Governor Dodge State Park.
Sure.
We had the little, what I would call Tonka trucks, the metal Tonka trucks.
Oh, yeah.
And we would literally, we were so small, we would run as fast as we could. We'd put our knees inside and we'd launch ourselves onto the beach with them. And so it was just like, we got to go to a lot of state parks. We went to Calumet State Park. So parks were kind of in it, but I didn't necessarily see that as a career path until I got into the operations side of the Milwaukee system and then saw this dynamic system here in Cleveland and had a chance to come.
Sure. Yeah. And let's talk about that. So, being Midwestern boys as us, a little bit farther to the West, when I first heard about the Cleveland opportunity, I was like, for me to move here, I was like, okay, Cleveland. Interesting. I didn't really know anything about Cleveland. How did that opportunity come for you, and what was your first reaction when you were like, the Cleveland Metroparks, interesting?
It's I would say I really had my head down, focused on what I was doing at the time. I wasn't looking for anything. Our boss at the time was very dynamic. I'm still very dynamic, but really tried to push us to a national stage. In 2009, Milwaukee won the national gold medal. By the way, how many national gold medals has Cleveland won? Do you know? Trivia
2.
question. Try again. Higher.
8. 5, baby, right in the middle.
So right in the middle.
Right in the sweet spot.
So a little trivia question there. But, it was unique the way she was pushing and driving. And then this opportunity came up. Vern Hartenberg was here for 22 years, and they were doing a national recruitment. They called one of the recruiters, and she goes, "Hey, are you interested in Cleveland?" I said, "Hey, I might be, but I got to do a little bit more research on it." I knew the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I knew University Circle a little bit because of the symphony and the orchestra. And then I knew the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So that was kind of my experience with what Cleveland and Northeast Ohio was. Having said that, when I flew in, this is a true story, I was supposed to see like a couple of things. And a gentleman by the name of Jim Kostelik picked me up, and the very first day, I think I saw maybe 35-40% of the park district.
Wow.
And we just kept driving. He was like, and he took me to like 7 o'clock at night. I think I was supposed to be dropped off at like 2 in the afternoon in downtown hotel. I'm like, what am I going to do here? That's my mantra. I'm like, I'm not going to sit still. So then they picked me up the next morning, and I got to see more of it, got to meet some staff. I'm like, wow, this might be one of the best park systems in the country. And it was a must-have.
Sure. And so you take the job, you move here. What was your first order of business?
It was interesting to see. I wasn't used to this, to be quite honest. I wasn't used to a platform that was really good. The way they had won 3 national gold medals, which is a standard by which everybody aspires to. And then you always wonder, like, how can I make it better? Like, what do we need to do to make this better? And the platform that we had from the previous commissioners, Fred Rzepka, David Whitehead, Bill Ryan were here for such a number of years. Now we've got Dan Moore, Bruce Rinker, and you've got E2. And their guiding and steady forces have been nothing but fantastic. But the first order of business was really to get to know people. And I think, you'll find the same thing when you moved here. It's like you're not from Cleveland, but you want to be accepted by Cleveland.
Totally.
And so you have to kind of figure that out. And I bet the first 3 years, most people didn't even know who I was, which was completely fine.
Yeah.
Because I was really trying to get to know authentic Cleveland and build relationships. Once the relationships start getting built and you got to see the progress, then people were like, hey, I want to help. I want to be part of this. So we really built a team. We hired a new HR person. That individual is retiring. We replaced a couple other key positions, which, on the bus, off the bus when you're in an organization, and people that were going to back what we were trying to get done.
Yeah, cool. In looking back at that 14 years, you're coming in wanting just to understand the people, the culture, because that's really what it is. Because it's not obviously running a business, but the business is getting people to that. So you have to know and understand that people. What were some of the processes like and maybe some of the hardships that you had and mistakes along the way that you made of being like, oh, this worked where I was and didn't work here?
It was interesting early on. I think in the media, I got beat up a little bit for hiring consultants. And part of it is that I did not want to say this was Brian's park. I wanted feedback from the community and unfiltered, not I took this idea from Milwaukee that should work in Cleveland. It was an authentic way of understanding. We did park intercepts, hundreds of park intercepts, which meant I just went and talked to people. Our consultants went and talked to people, and we really found out, Edgewater Park was a big source of opportunity. And, we're very thankful for the stewardship that the state did for 35 years. Unsung, they did a lot of great capital work that kind of allowed us to. The last few years probably weren't necessarily their shining moments, but that was one of the big strategic goals and gets. But understanding how the system had worked and where could it potentially catapult itself to. When I talked about having that great platform, it was nice to be able to say, hey, here's how we can go. So we were building the strategic plan, because when I was here, it was 3 years to the levy. And so we built a new strategic plan, which is every 10 years. So it's not something that was replicated, and it worked. And we took on the lakefront, and we took it on in a levy year, and people have been nothing but excited about the work that's been done on the lakefront.
Yeah, and it's been incredible to be able to see. I hear horror stories about Edgewater Park before you guys took it over, and I think that a lot of things sometimes, some things are just so screwed up that you don't even know how to fix it. Was that kind of the way with Edgewater? and what were some of your first steps? Because that's kind of for being in downtown, that's the park. That's Cleveland's beach.
Yeah. I call it tenor, tone, and pace. And you've got to match those things. And, we worked tirelessly. We brought staff in from, it was probably 17 park reservations at the time, because Acacia had just come on. So we probably were already there. By memory. But, it was one of those things I can remember. Joe Rozek, our COO, and I were giving a presentation down at Whiskey Island.
Yeah.
And we were wearing our suits. And that night we go back in Edgewater, and it is a free-for-all. And there's garbage. And in my suit, I picked up a broom and a bucket, and I started picking things up. And I'll never forget, right in front of Joe, somebody threw a Pringles can right at his feet, and the girlfriend or wife or whatever significant other punched him. He's like, "What are you doing? This is our beach." And it wasn't a cleanliness culture. It wasn't something that was being respected. It wasn't something that people felt safe. The sewer district is doing yeoman's work to try to stop the overflows, and the beach cleaning. They sponsored the beach cleaning, and so again, progress through partnerships. We got people on board, and the narrative changed. Our police. We had one night where we did a detail. We probably had 30 police officers in there, and it was something that we needed to make a statement. Hey, shenanigans, these things, drinking in the parking lot, throwing glass bottles. I mean, all of the bad things that were happening are not acceptable, and so we needed to change the narrative. And that flipped on its ear, and next thing people came back, and then the Edgewater Live concert series, Euclid Beach Live concert series. Who would have thought 16,000 people would see Carlos Jones in a sunset on Lake Erie? And everybody's like, "Where are you? Where are you?" We're in Cleveland, Ohio. There's no way Cleveland, Ohio has a sunset like that, but sure enough, it does, and it's awesome.
Yeah, and it's funny because you kind of go back to what you were talking about when you were with the Milwaukee, with the golf of you put money in and you get money out. And that is a lot of what sounds like was at Edgewater too. And, that's just one example of it. But it's not only do you put money in, but you put respect into it, and then you'll get respect back out.
Yeah, it's a unique thing to see how people have embraced. And I would tell you, from the development community, there were early investors in the top portion there, the Shoreway Loft. I won't say the specific families, but there were families that were wanting to put resources in. And then when you looked over, the Shoreway, you're just like, wow, I'm putting money in for this. And then the Park District came, and again, I think it was one of those things. It was hand in glove, and now you look at that Battery Park area, almost everything is sold out up there. And so it does matter. We call it the proximate principle. Land closest or adjacent to a high-quality park has a higher value, and people wanted to live. And then, the tunnel and Matt Zone's work with getting the Shoreway. And so there were so many unique things that kind of happened that all hit at the right time. And, that's hard to believe. That was 2013.
Yeah, and one of the cool things that I've seen too is I live in Tremont, so right down the hill from me is the new that park is unbelievable, with the Jose Ramirez baseball park, and you got the basketball courts, you got the amazing jungle gym for kids. It's incredible to see just what has come out of that, and also boost up some property value as well.
For sure. That particular area had been, Clark Fields is what it was called. And they had some heavy metals. So actually the city of Cleveland's relationship there is they're the actual owners of it. And then the Metroparks, maintains the trail that comes through it. So again, public partnership there, which most, wouldn't necessarily know. But Jose Ramirez and the Cleveland Guardians, I mean, what else can I say? They help with the Tomey Field and the work that we did during the All-Star game here. And again, these, major league sports teams have been fantastic. We did the Cavs thing with the LAN series. We did the Ball Diamond. We're just waiting for the Browns. So, at some point in time, maybe we'll find a way to partner with them. Hint, hint.
Browns, you're on the hot seat. My goodness.
I mean, they're the only major league sports team that we haven't partnered with yet. But
what the heck?
I don't know. They're focused right now. They've got a season coming up here, and we're very excited about the upcoming season.
Sure. And you're talking about the partnership with teams. One of the coolest partnerships that we talked about a lot last year was the partnership, the City Connect with the Cavs. That was awesome. How did that kind of come about? How did that go? And what was that process like?
Hey, Brian, this is Nick. Hey, we're thinking about focusing on sustainability and want to highlight the parks. Okay, Nick, sounds good. How do we put this together? I mean, it was done. I mean, sometimes I think people can overthink things and the relationship and, process and evolution. And when you look at, I think it was one of the most successful Jersey series or, the Land Connect, other than, when LeBron was here, which, I don't know that we'll ever match those numbers, but I mean, it meant a lot to the park district to be highlighted for sustainability. And I wish you luck putting that back together during the podcast. Might need tech support. But, it was really unique to see, that partnership come forward. They're fantastic from that end. And we hope to be able to repeat it at some point in time. And I don't know if we can do a tech support call here.
We're going to do a quick intermission as my microphone, for anyone that's listening on Spotify, my microphone just fell. All right.
You did really pretty good there, other than wrapping the cord up.
Yeah, it's all right. It's a quick fix. Yeah. We'll save the rest for later. Now we're back, ready to go. Yeah. Anyways, yes, City Connect. But here's I think a lot of people, what you talked about, just not overthinking things. Where's your barometer on that? Because dealing with, and seeing a lot of this, I feel like in management, in whatever it may be, people sometimes are their own worst enemy and they overthink things, they overmanage things. How have you come into that mindset of this is a great opportunity, let's rock, let's not get in my own way?
That's a great question. In our system, we have a lot of what I call smart anchors. And so I throw things out, they come back. And I call it the ER factor. They're normally better. And so you come up with this idea or something comes forward and said, hey, what do you think about this? And, we try not to overthink if it has the benefit for the community. And, this concept of these trails and the new strategic plan and I call it the new, but it's that 10-year cycle. So, it gets refreshed, I guess, every 10 years. And so we go out and meet all these folks. But, trying not to, does it make sense? Does it make sense for the community? Does it grow the community? Is it beneficial? Do people get joy from it or pleasure? And when you see, what we've been able to do, it's really pretty remarkable. And I think there's they talk about analysis paralysis, where I overthink it. And then guess what? I could have done that project 3 times over and made it incrementally better each time, or I didn't start at all. And so you can tell I start to get more because it's one of the things that I think we're really, really good at is taking something and ideating it and then pushing it forward. And when you think of Huntington, the new bathrooms and the new beach facility, Wallace Lake, the new facility, bathrooms, beach house, lifeguard station, it's like, hey, let's do this. And it's awesome. Yeah. And the analysis by paralysis, so many people struggle through that, and it's the most frustrating thing. We have to talk about level 5 patience. Yeah. And so the team goes, Brian, you need to be level 5 today. Level 5 patience. We're working through some things, but it's one of those things where. Who's telling you that? Team members. I've got some really good, anchors, and they just basically say, look, let's work our way through this. But, the reality is we only have so much time on this earth. And when you're in a position to lead through change, lead through opportunities. COVID was, unique and remarkable in so many ways, the way we thought about it. Chalet is a great example. Time ticketing. We just did buy a ticket and then come stand in line and freeze your butt off for 3 hours and maybe get to run. Freeze your butt off out there. That one day, I think it was the coldest day that I've ever been outside doing an interview. You braved the elements. I think it was, and I was a wimp about it. Let me tell you what, but it was
negative
something.
Like the actual temperature. Yeah, we got Jacqueline over here. -4. And
Yes.
it was unbearably cold. And then we go down go 40 miles an hour down the chalet. That was a brutal morning.
Well, Mickey Burns called and said, she goes, you're the only CEO that would get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and go out there at that. I mean, I call that booger freezing weather. I mean, like when everything is just freezing, nothing's running, it's that cold.
Yeah.
But the time ticketing worked for us, and we've now implemented through the rest of the time. Timed tee times. We prided ourselves on high quality golf, but we were pushing rounds through at 8 minutes, and we got a lot of complaints on pace of play. COVID, we backed it up to 10 minutes, and it's helped. And it's helped with our process. And so there were things, the igloos at Merwin's Wharf. So we pushed ourselves to think differently, and we didn't accept status quo. Status quo, will only last you for so long, and then someone will outthink you or outsmart you or outwork you, and we're not going to let that happen to us.
Sure. You're talking about leadership too, and how has your leadership style changed or maybe had to change in, just the day-to-day management or big picture management from when you first started until now? What are some of the lessons that you've learned?
I'll even back up farther than that. Yeah. I started coaching high school wrestling back in 1999, 2000. And one of the things I prided myself on, by the end of the first week, I knew every kid's name and something about them. And the importance of that shouldn't be lost is when they have somebody holding them accountable, it's harder to quit on them.
Yeah.
And so, hey, Bill, I understand you got some things going on in your family. He goes, I'll see you next week. And, also the coach, he knew my name. I was held accountable, and he's making sure I come back. And so I've transferred that when I was at Marquette University High School, coaching there. We had 40, 45 kids, which made it harder, but I really prided myself on learning something about them. My point in saying that is that from the evolution of management, taking that skill set to managing a crew at a golf course, then leading up to managing managers. So expectations are different. And at the time, I think I might have been like 30 years old. And so I was managing team members that were my father's age. And I always thought, how would I want someone to treat my dad if this were their leader? And so I really thought about that. And then the strategy of coming here in 2010 of leading something, was very different. I was in operations. So my job, I was the fixer. Something hit the fan, Brian can go fix it. And so that's what I was really, really good at. And so not that I couldn't do the other stuff, it's just there were other people to do that. So when I got the chance to come here, really building an ecosystem for success, building the right team out, having the support of the commissioners, having the support of the probate judge, having the support of the community, those things have all evolved, but it's definitely changed over time. Now it's really unique. Probably in the last year, I've actually had to tell a few staff members whoa, hold here. They're like, but, and they're just like, whoa, hold. Yeah. You got to see the forest through the trees.
So now you're the pauser.
I every now and then I tap the brake a little bit.
Bump.
Yeah, I tap the brakes a little bit because I have to hold things up because you have to think through what are the next 3 steps that are going to happen after that. They see one part that they're doing, but then it has 3 more components.
Sure. In leadership, in just management, what are some of the who are some of your inspirations, or who are some of the biggest people that impacted you on your way up? You talked about your high school coach, or the person that was coaching alongside you, but who are some other people that you've taken some things from, or also the opposite? Sometimes you learn the best from bad management and being like, I don't want to do that.
I could say a lot of different things. One, grandparents, father, mother, they give you a base, sure. Right? And then, going to work for your first job, being on time, as a farm, it's like, if you're 5 minutes late, there's no time clock. But, when you go to work, you need to be up on time. So, my boss at the time was Randy Smith, Godfather, never was treated, differently. But the point is that anything that was imaginable, we did. Yeah. And so we floated concrete, we built bathrooms, we put roofs on things. We were running a golf course. I mean, we were maintaining a golf course, but the bathroom got burned down one night, and our team rebuilt it, and we rebuilt cart paths, and we rebuilt Andy North. My senior project was the number 6 green. And so my point in saying that is that I always took ownership on how do we do it? How do we do it? How do we internalize it? And how do we make it better? And so he was a fantastic guide. It's interesting. I'm here because of the park director that I work for in Milwaukee, and there were times that her leadership was very challenging, and she was very forward thinking, and there were times that you kind of like your eyes got to open up. It's like, hey, I don't necessarily know that I would treat people that way, but it's kind of this process and evolution of understanding who you are, understanding the emotional intelligence of a situation, and then how do I get to the end? The goal is, how do I get there? And there's lots of different ways. And in leadership, you have to understand your way not always may not always be the best. And that's where you bring this team along, because when they take ownership of it, you'll get there.
Yeah, and that really is an interesting thing, because you can have a leader who might have a great vision, but if they're beating everyone down to be able to get it, or just trying to push everyone across how do you build ownership in your employees?
You know, we talk about using your voice. That's one of the things most that work in our system have had a chance to do, what I call a Brian Unplugged. And so every month or every 2 to 3 weeks, during COVID, I did it every week.
Spout out just sentence fragments and start yelling at everyone unplugged?
I don't do any of those things. It's actually the staff's chance to actually come in and sit.
I like that.
Yeah.
All right.
And during COVID, we did it on Zoom or Teams or whatever was available, for the day, but now it's in person again. And it's our chance for our staff to use their voice. And we say that during onboarding. It's like, look, not only did you choose, we chose you, you chose us. You have a set of skills. Help us. If you see something, the police always say, say something, or see something, say something. Yeah. It's the same type of concept, using your voice for good. And that always tends to help when you have this ground up. I tell this story often. A gentleman, when I first got there, the bathrooms, when you walk by our Bain administration, and I said, hey, Frank, how many times have you painted this? And he goes, I think this is number 3 for me. And he goes, we should side this. And I'm like, you know what? We should side this. I said, why don't you, say something? He's like, management this. And, sure enough, we sided it. And now it hasn't been painted in, 14 years. So we have really smart, dedicated staff that works with us every single day. And so when you figure out how to include them in the process, have ownership, and give good direction. And the other thing is that we're blessed with is resources. We have resources to help build this community up. We're embarking on a massive, major campaign for the Sesquicentennial. Do you know what that is?
I do not. I have no idea.
150th anniversty of the Cleveland Metroparks Zoo.
That's the name,
Sesquicentennial. I just love saying it. I think
Sesquicentennial. It just
super
rolls
cool.
off the tongue.
It kind of does.
Kind of, yeah.
We have to work at it.
With some molasses on there.
Yes, but having said that, to see this iconic institution here that has the free Mondays. We've got Swan Voyage. We've got dinos this summer, but we're embarking on this $100 million campaign that we're going to provide our gorillas with new habitat. We've got 3 new babies. It's just such a unique opportunity to see the zoo grow into its own.
Sure, and we're talking about growth. You're well traveled either throughout the country. You're working with a bunch of different metro parks, and then also internationally as well. We were just talking off camera that you're going to be going over to Europe. When you go over to these places, what are some things that you see that you're like, I would love to implement that here in Cleveland?
It's interesting. I've had, and we talked about the richness of being able to travel and use ideas that have been, born someplace else. And a great example is Destination Cleveland. Yeah. One of the things that they brought was these signs. You see the Cleveland signs. Well, that was inspired by, another part of the world.
Sure.
The lighting campaign, the downtown lighting campaign that they're working on, David Gilbert and Hannah and this whole entire team of making Public Square become alive with the buildings. And I really love what I call the square to square, kind of concept. Public Square to Playhouse Square. How do we illuminate that? John Penny's leadership at, as the president, driving those things forward, putting money behind it, but seeing those things. We've also had the chance to travel to Rwanda to see the gorillas. The Diane Fossey Group were one of the leaders in gorilla conservation. Dr. Kristen Lucas, Dr. Chris Kuhar, they are nothing but fantastic. But when you get to see those things in the wild, it's truly, truly remarkable. And then when you travel overseas, there's history. There's, hundreds of years, centuries sometimes in these cities of history. And, they've already kind of figured some of the stuff out.
Yeah. Yeah. And, because in terms of that, we're an infant country,
We are.
They've been doing it for so long, looking at just Cleveland now, what are, a little SWOT analysis, what are our strengths and what are our weaknesses going forward, and how do we continue to move Northeast Ohio forward along with the Metroparks?
The strength comes to mind right away as new mayor, new county executive. And I appreciate anybody that served, whether it was, Mayor Frank Jackson or Armin Budish or, any before them. But the new leadership here has a very different presence, a very different tenor, tone, and pace. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is this city needs to evolve. And I don't know that's evolving as fast as we all want it to, but progress does take time. And when you look at the mayor's interactions and what they're taking on, the Shoreway, the land bridge, the stadium, Burke Lakefront Airport, and certainly I'm not speaking for the mayor, but this is an outside perspective that they're tackling these things. County executive, when you talk about public health or the crises or the jail or some of these things, they're moving the needle. And the clarity for me is that when you see the jail facility sitting right in our downtown area, and you see this beautiful convention center and the hotel, if we want to continue to operate in that space, we need to evolve that. And I'm advocating heavily for an expanded part of the convention center. And when you look at ASAE is coming, which is the association's convention centers, they're the ones that program. We need to show Cleveland its best light. We've also got the Senior Masters Pan American Games. And so we have such a unique opportunity. When people come to Cleveland for the first time, they're like, wow, I didn't think Cleveland looked like this at all. And they see 25,000 acres and the Symphony and the Rock Hall and the Science Center and all these wonderful institutions and University Circle. It's truly remarkable. So that's the strength. The weakness sometimes we are our own enemies. Like and I talk now because I believe we're Clevelanders. Yeah. Is sometimes we need to extol the virtues of what's really been good here. The threats are from job analysis and those things. We really need to be creative and embracing, whether it's Brian Stubbs at the Cleveland Water Alliance or finding these niche things, whether it's the Intel plant and how do we parlay off of that, what Beju Shaw is doing over at Greater Cleveland Partnership. How do we figure out to put more puzzle pieces together and invest in innovation, technology in those spaces and using this water economy?
Sure. Irishtown, Ben, what can we expect? That's going to be finished in probably about 3 years? Am I right on that?
It's plus or minus. I think, when you look at what the port has been able to set forward, Land Studio and their plan, the fundraising, think of it, the Cleveland Foundation Centennial Trail started a number of years ago. Yeah. So the first section came off the towpath, and then we built in front of that, and we kept the momentum going with the Wendy Park Bridge. So I really look forward to the completion of that, and they unearth some what I would call kind of old home sites, and I think there'll be more of an interpretive along the way. But when you look at a 25-acre park that can help redefine how a city looks at itself, and what I mean by that is when you're sitting in that park, you're going to look right into downtown.
It's the best view of downtown.
It is, and so that's the opportunity. The opportunity is how do we continue to manifest these types of activities so that people want to return to the city? When you look at our conversion rates of businesses, but are we getting people to actually come here, work remotely? Like, what is that? I mean, when you look at our quality of life here, this, it's really second to none.
Absolutely. And coming from Chicago and seeing all my buddies' rents in Chicago, it's like, and now that was kind of one of the beauties of COVID is that it really opened up the workforce, and especially for mid-sized cities like Cleveland, it's a great opportunity. It's
a huge opportunity. And when you look at, this expanded lakefront opportunities, we're partnering with the city of Cleveland, County Executive Ronayne, East 9th, East 55th. We're going to build a trail right from the Rock Hall. We're partnering with the Rock Hall and their plaza and their, $100 million expansion. Yeah. Greg Harris and that board. I mean, they're crushing it right now. So I always want to keep focusing on the positive things that this region is doing and how do we continue to build off those momentums. And when we talk about this potential TIFA and how to reinvest and how to reengage, and, when you see these old cities, and I call them old historic cities, we have to rethink our narrative and we have to reposition ourselves to be that city of the future.
Sure. Irishtown, Ben, Flats, we talked about it a little bit at the beginning, but, where is I feel like you guys are just scratching the surface of what you guys are going to be doing down there. What's the plan going forward for the next 10 years?
Yeah, so there's so many unique things going on in the next 10 years, and this isn't, like a whirlwind tour, but when we started in the South, we picked up Ironwood Golf Course, so 8 to 9. The Brown family were amazing, and to preserve, I loved it because I got to meet them personally, and they were dairy farmers, and that was where they grew up.
That's awesome.
And it meant something, and so for us to be able to preserve that legacy, that means a lot. Hinkley Lake Dam, we're doing a $10 million redo of a dredge and the dam. It's a Class 1 dam. We have certain insurance requirements. It needed to be rebuilt, so we're doing that. I need to take a break and take a little drink of water here.
Good. So we'll filibuster here. Are you taking a break, or do you have to think about what you're going to be talking about next? Is that the classic filibuster for you?
It is not a filibuster. I think it may be pollen. I may have brought some pollen in this morning for my early morning walk. But when I look at what we've been able to continue to accomplish, you can come up into the Wallace Lake area, and we're rebuilding that. And I hear so many wonderful family stories of my first date, my first ticket, my first this. In these parks, we're rebuilding that. And We just did the Mastic Road Trail Connector up on top. So you're going to continue to see this theme of connection. Solon to the South Chagrin, Solon to Chagrin Falls, new trail opportunity there. Garfield, we're rebuilding Garfield from the center. A new Garfield Program Center, new lake with the Sewer District partnership, and a host of wonderful donors. We're rebuilding the historic dam, all new stones. It's truly, we're going to have a Redbud Loop Trail. Our trails teams are in there rebuilding. You're going to see a lot more of this historic things continue happening. The zoo project we talked about, East 9th, East 55th, Gordon Park, the southern part of it. We're working with the Mandel Foundation, Land Studio to reimagine what that will look like. We bought a barge over in Wildwood, so we're working on that. Expanding into North Chagrin Nature Center, what should that look like in the future? We've got this little bitty thing called the Community Sailing Center in Cheers in that East 55th area, so it's a little nugget for the future. Yeah. So there's a lot of really cool opportunities to continue to enhance the quality of life for the residents here.
The man doesn't stop. All right, so that's kind of looking big picture. What can we look forward to this summer?
This summer, well, Jacqueline has prepped me very well.
I saw that.
Swan Voyage, the boat launch at the zoo. It was really interesting, born out of that Hinkley Lake was closing, and we had boat rentals down there like, hey, what do we do? How do we do? What do we do with staff? And so they brought swan boats to the lake. So Waterfall Lake, swan boats, get it? So that'll be really cool. Dino Cove, which every day I get to hear the theme to Jurassic Park is going on outside the office, so that goes home in my head every day. Concert series, which will be announced here shortly. It's just, I think, parks and music have been one of the very consistent things for over, a century. And so we continue with that theme, that tradition. Kids lunch and learns all over the park district, specifically in the Euclid Beach area with hornblowers, the old hornblowers boat, Lean Dog. We want to see that evolve. We're still raising money for it, but we want that to be an outdoor classroom on there, which I think will be super cool. Disc golf for the very first time. We're building. It's actually built and people have started playing it. It's the old Astorhurst golf course.
Oh, nice.
So super cool down there. The interesting thing and challenging, it's location. You have to want to drive down there,
sure.
But once you get there, you'll be rewarded. So that'll be a very good thing along the way. East 1955th, the groundbreaking, which we talked about. Garfield, Primate Forest, groundbreaking this fall. So we do have a lot of wonderful things. We got 3 baby gorillas. We've got there's animals everywhere.
Yeah.
In where they're supposed to be, obviously.
Absolutely, yeah. Where they're supposed to be. As we're kind of wrapping up here, I know, do you have trivia questions for me or something?
Well, you've answered mistakenly some of them already.
Good.
So
all right, perfect. For anyone listening to this, everyone knows who you are, or at least they know the product of what you manage. What do you want the public to know about you and know about your mission?
Well, one of the trivia questions, what year were we founded?
What's 107 years ago? I don't know. 1910. I don't know. Something like that.
19 would have been close. 1917.
1917. Yeah, that's what I said.
I really want to say that it's generational.
Yeah.
When you look at the generations that have been able to use, explore, and when you talked about, I think early on in the podcast, we talked a little bit about location. And when people identify with, I love Leafman, the Cleveland Metroparks, the branding, but I love Rocky River Nature Center, or I love, Solon, or I love the Polo Fields, or Washington Golf Learning Center. And, we just opened with our partners at the First Tee, what I would call a world-class facility. They're having, a tremendous success there. But really, we are here for this community. And when you look at COVID, our numbers were, 23, 24 plus million.
Yeah.
People needed a place to go. And we talk about, I talk about this often, the mental health side of things. Being able to go unfiltered without our phones and being able to listen to a Baltimore Oriole or the Cardinals singing or a flicker, whatever it happens to be, we need that reconnection. We need the grounding with the earth, and we have 25,000 acres that are preserved. And I have to give a shout out to all the other parks around us, Lake, Lorraine, Geauga, Medina, Summit. They're all doing wonderful things. We also have Cuyahoga Valley National Park. From a C to ACs, Cleveland, Akron, Canton, we have a national park that binds us together as well. So we have over 75,000 plus acres of green space. We really have something for everyone. We call it your time, your place. Use the parks.
Absolutely. Anything else you want to get off your chest?
I really, this has been a lot of fun. The banter, we've known each other. We're, Midwestern. I call it west of the Midwest. We're on that other side a little bit. But, we were talking about Wisconsin and old fashions and history. And, memories are really made in this park district. And, you talk about some memories, going up to northern Wisconsin. We have that unique opportunity every single day to create memories with kids and family and husbands and wives and whatever it happens to be. However, we are here for you every single day.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're my second Wisconsin guest on the show.
There's another one?
Joe Thomas.
Oh, JT.
JT, baby.
Yeah, Brookfield native.
Now lives in Madison, or outside of Madison. Where south of Madison are you at now? Or did you live?
Yeah, Belleville, so he's a little bit further west. Everybody people know where he lives. But his draft day, remember what he did on his draft day?
He went fishing.
So a true Wisconsin thing to do. He was with his family, he was on Lake Michigan, and he was fishing. And, it wasn't about the pomp and circumstance. And when you look at what he did every single day, the workman mentality, that's what we try to do here every day.
Love it. My grandpa grew up in Blanchardville, Wisconsin.
That's right near Belleville, which is,
right? Absolutely. Yep. My goodness. All right. Brian Zimmerman, the man, the myth, the Leslie Knope of Cleveland Metroparks. And also, he told the first thing he said to me, he goes, I got my hair a little high and tight here, so I'm glad that I can maybe have been a little inspiration for you.
I tried just to emulate a little bit today, but it's actually, truthfully, I bent down in the closet picking a garbage bag up, and my hair was fresh, and it actually pushed it up. So, but I'm like, I get to see Austin today, so this will work.
Yeah, that's what I do every day. I just take a garbage bag and just see what happens.
Fun.
All right. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thank you.